look, I've got money coming, but can we just, can you wait 3 months? It's that's a tricky discussion to have.
Hey Laurence.
Hey Josh.
I've been thinking about the podcast. How about in the first series we focus on the pandemic?
Yeah, and in each episode we can ask our guest how it's been affecting them and what they do.
We could ask people to join in with the hashtag posnegative.
How would we introduce it each week?
We'll just say, welcome to Positive Negative.
In this episode, I am talking with photographer Andrew Walmsley, who I chatted with on April 10th. Andrew is a fantastic photographer with a range of styles from wildlife to studio shoots, and you'll find links to his amazing work in the show notes. I thought it'd be interesting to have Andrew on the podcast because, as a freelance photographer, his work and income effectively stopped overnight when the lockdown came into place. He talks about this, but also about how it's brought his local community closer together. Hey Andrew.
Hello.
Hey man.
Right, there we go. Good. Just realised I've got all sorts of nonsense going on in my throat, but that's good. Right.
That's okay. I always find these Zoom meetings weird because you just get thrown right in. There's no like ringtone or anything like that.
Yeah, I know. That's I'm sort of slowly getting used to it, but still find it kind of weird. But I've always found Skype things kind of weird as well. So it's like Do
you find them weirder than a normal phone call?
I think so. Well, particularly when you use video and you just sort of sit and stare at each other. I think that's the thing. Which like I've done a couple of kind of interviews and things over Skype before. For sort of to discuss commissions and things. And it's just something weird. It's so close to being normal conversation looking at someone, but then you're just sort of sitting staring at them and then kind of staring at yourself at the same time, and then becoming really aware of what your face is doing, which I think doesn't normally happen. But I think
I think it's the looking at yourself because you're always conscious then of your appearance.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is you can't actually make eye contact with anybody because the camera obviously is at the top of the screen, and that's really what you should be looking into to be.
I think that's it. But then you're always looking slightly below. It's like that thing. There was a thing I saw. It was just like how to slightly unnerve people, and it was like if you talk to one of their ears in a normal conversation, and it takes people ages to realize that you're looking at their ear, but you kind of are, and it's that sort of sensation. It's like, why is everyone staring at my chin? In these slightly weird times, it's all we've got, really, isn't it?
That is true.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. If you'd like to begin by introducing yourself and telling us what it is that you do.
Sure. So my name is Andrew Walmsley. I'm a professional photographer. I've been self-employed and sort of full-time photographer for now 13. Yeah, this is my 13th year. And so I got into photography originally. Actually, I studied marine biology, but my first job was photographing dolphins in Wales, in the country Wales. Whenever I say dolphins in Wales, people get confused. But yeah, so working in Cardigan Bay, photographing dolphins' dorsal fins so that you can identify individuals, and that got me into photography. And through that, so I do a combination of wildlife and conservation photography, but also work in sort of commercial freelance. So photograph everything from events to kind of studio work. And my current sort of focus and the current sort of subject that I find really interesting are particularly sort of dance and performance, kind of circus kind of things. So both studio lit portraits of performers, but also performances as well. So yeah.
That's great. I've seen some of that latest work as well. It's looking fantastic.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. So obviously, the thing I found quite enjoyable lately, about some of the latest work that I've done that you said you've seen is doing more studio stuff. Proper sort of full studio lighting and backgrounds and the level of kind of control that you get. It's obviously quite different from some of my previous, from a lot of the wildlife work, obviously, where you're there and just letting whatever your subject is do what it does. So
when did you start in photography? Did you start purely just doing wildlife stuff, or did you ever train in a studio and then decide just to do wildlife?
No, I never actually did. I've never done any formal training in photography. It was so the first time I got a proper SLR was in 2005, and I'd just always kind of been interested in photography, but I was doing a lot of the sort of things I was doing when I was at uni was I was doing a lot of turtle conservation particularly, and I had a little point and shoot digital camera with me and stuff, but very, very limited in what you can do, particularly in the completely low light environment of nocturnal turtles coming up and laying eggs on a beach. And I remember thinking, like, I really want to be able to capture this properly. So that was in 2004 when I was in Trinidad doing the turtle work. And I just thought, I really want to be able to get proper pictures of this. And that's kind of when I first realized that actually, maybe getting a proper camera, proper SLR would be a good idea. And just sort of went from there. It was really just a sort of, my initial interest in photography was just trying to find ways that I could capture the images of the amazing wildlife I was being around. I was around to actually get good pictures of that. So I could maybe try and get other people who didn't have the opportunity to be there to care as much as I did. I guess was my initial motivation with it.
It seems like you've been pretty successful in doing that ever since.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been, yeah, I've had some good breaks and things, and had some, had some work published various places, and yeah, been lucky enough to make some excellent contacts within the wildlife and sort of conservation world, and yeah, been able to go and see some amazing things.
And what's life like now? What kind of impact has Corona and the lockdown had on you and your work?
A lot of my bread and butter work, a lot of the sort of work that pays the bills, is photographing events, and so I live in Oxford, and through sort of I used to do a lot of work with like a local newspaper, and through that I've made various contacts with both with the county and city council, and with a few schools around Oxford actually who use me to photograph events and sports games, and say for instance as well, like for creating pictures for their prospectuses and all this sort of stuff, and obviously as soon as any form of lockdowns or even the social distancing started, all of that stopped. So every single event was cancelled, every single shoot, every single sports game, and then obviously when all the schools shut fully, so since it's been about a month now that just every single event was cancelled, and obviously that's quite worrying as a fully self-employed person who relies on that income, to just have it completely taken away from you is kind of terrifying.
And is there any other way you can earn income? Like, are you able to sort of search through your libraries and make any money out of stock?
I do a bit of stock. I've got quite a few things. Mainly my wildlife work is on stock libraries, but also a few other bits and pieces are on stock libraries. And I guess actually one positive from all this is it is showing me that yeah, definitely having eggs in many different baskets is quite an important safety net to have, so that when times like this happen, which I'm really hoping that nothing this major obviously will happen in the foreseeable future, but just to have some sort of contingency plan for even just for the quiet times, to have that extra income stream is very useful. I've been doing a bit of video recently as well, and as SLRs have been able to capture full, properly professional quality video, and a few of those clips, there's just a few clips that I've edited down to sort of 10-20 seconds, and uploaded to various different libraries. A few of those are sold, and so I do have a small percentage of my income is through stock, and it is, these current times are showing me that actually that would be useful, because that's unlikely to be as affected, because the people who are producing magazines and books, and the people who are buying stock images are still mostly working, albeit from home, but they are still using images.
Do you know if there's any potential that would be more popular now because people are unable to go out and shoot themselves?
I don't know. I think possibly. It's not really a thing I've particularly thought about, but I think that's probably true. I think, because obviously people can't really commission anyone to go out and photograph anything at the moment. Even if they're working alone, it's, the with the guidelines being about, only doing essential work and things, I think that it might be tricky to justify that, to justify going off to the countryside to go and photograph some little owls, for instance, if that's what someone was commissioning you for. So I assume that actually, that those sort of things, they probably would be more reliant on stock, definitely at the moment, and probably for a short time, sort of, once the lockdown finishes. And same probably as well with video, I'd imagine. So it is. I think it is worth getting some stuff. There's one image library that I sell quite a bit through is Alamy, who they're actually based just down the road from me, down towards Didcot. They have started to do Are You Stuck at Home but still want to shoot stuff section on their blog. And they have a wants list of all the images that they don't have, and they're all things that actually this is stuff you can be photographing at home.
In a way, this is an amazing time to go out and photograph, but I guess you're not allowed. Is there any frustrate? Like, are you thinking like, oh, this would be amazing to get wildlife, or just in Oxford where you live, just empty shots of the city?
Well, that is a thing. I mean, I know a lot of press photographers, so I have done a bit of press work as well in the past. And I know a lot of press photographers are out getting those sort of things. The thing as well, one thing which it has shown me is that actually that for a few years I have been meaning to update my press pass, because a press pass would allow you to do that. You are news gathering, and so it is actually something that I need to get a new version of. And so I've emailed one of the agents at Alamy to, because it needs to go through a recognised news outlet to get a press pass, and that would be very useful, because I can go and gather pictures of empty city and all that sort of stuff. I mean, certainly, like out on my sort of 1 hour allowed out of the house, for a walk or anything, I've been taking a camera and I do keep meaning to actually go into the city centre and get some pictures. I think the thing with those is, I think because everyone is doing that at the moment, there's probably, that's probably what every single news photographer is photographing at the moment, because there's not really that much else to be doing. So there's probably quite a big amount of those pictures out there, but it's still useful for to have a portfolio of those sort of pictures up. So it's on the to-do list. Just need to actually do.
I guess you wouldn't hear anything until June, but would you be eligible for the self-employed support the government are offering?
As far as I'm aware, I should be. I've looked over all the criteria. I was certainly very glad to see that when Rishi Sunak announced it. I was very pleased to see that we were getting the same or very similar terms to people who are employed. It's slightly just the delay between now and June is tricky. Again, I'm in a very lucky position in that. So we live in a shared house, which makes sort of all the general sort of costs a bit lower anyway. Also I live with my girlfriend. Obviously, I live with Lucy. I know Lucy's been on this podcast as well. So she's still able to work from home and is incredibly kindly, helping me out in terms of covering rent and things. But without that safety net, I would be really struggling to be paying rent and council tax and food bills and all the rest of it. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are really struggling. And June just feels like a long way away.
I think it's great. Well, it's really fortunate for you that you're in that good position. I think. Well, I suppose. I feel like I'm in a similar position to you as well. But then I just think, if you didn't have that or have any extra support, you'd be in quite a difficult place, because that's quite a long time to wait, isn't it?
Yeah. And I know it's going to be a lump sum, but it's hard to convince all the people you owe money to. It's hard to convince landlords and power companies that, look, I've got money coming, but can we just can you wait 3 months? It's that's a tricky discussion to have, but As I say, sort of, you know, I do consider myself very lucky in the support that I've got around me.
How are you feeling generally day to day?
Generally, day to day, I feel pretty good actually. I've discovered that I've got more hobbies than I thought I did.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. So we converted the garage a few months ago into a bit of a workshop, and we've actually been quite productive in making things. The current project is a hot tub that we're making.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's we got the wood ages ago, so we're making it out of reclaimed scaffolding boards, and all this wood has just been sitting around because I've just never really had the time to do the work on it, and it's been quite nice lately because we've actually, I've actually had the time. So yeah, so one of our housemates, he's very good. He's very good to the carpenter, and between the two of us, we're making this thing, and before too long, we'll have a combination of solar and wood heated hot tub. So
Wow.
so that sort of stuff, the other kind of creative outlets are actually really good for sort of mental health and things.
Yeah.
I think that if I didn't have any other interests, and again the space to do them, I think I would be struggling with it. Um, but but no, I think discovering all these other things that don't involve a camera at all have actually been quite good in sort of keeping me going.
That's really good.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to not look at my phone too much because it's terrifying when you actually start looking at it. Looking at graphs is just a terrible idea, I've discovered. Yeah, I think for the first few days, I think I definitely looked at too many graphs. Yeah, have you found the same? I guess you've got quite sort of a bit more time.
Yeah, I think beginning I was definitely falling down some Twitter holes and news holes and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
My work, because it's not all shoot based, like I've had some editing work, so I've been fairly busy. And obviously, with Josh, we decided to start this podcast, so still continually sort of doing bits that feel like work, so keeping busy. And then I feel like I'm not really panicking about this situation anymore, or I haven't, at least for the past few days, I guess, because I'm not necessarily, I wasn't like big panicked, but when you are just sort of reading stuff and then you start
yeah,
getting worried. And I suppose at the beginning it is just like, oh, like family, and I've got a grandmother that's in her 90s and stuff like that. But there seem to be support networks in place for everybody that I'm worried about. So those things seem to be working quite well. So hopefully
mm,
everyone there keeps safe. Keep thinking about when it could have happened at different periods of time in my life.
mm,
So probably similar to yourself, like I've lived in different house shares, and I've thought, oh, it'd been really good if it happened in this house share, because that was a really great group of people. And I just
yeah.
think, oh, it could have been a nightmare if it happened if I was stuck in this house share with this group of people. So it's kind of interesting thinking of it in those terms. Like when not not there's ever a point where you think, when would it have been a good time for a global pandemic to strike?
Well,
But
yeah, exactly, yeah. But there definitely could have been a lot worse times. I think, as you say, just individually, in
yeah,
terms of yeah, we've all, anyone who's lived in a house share has always had you know some sort of nightmare housemates, and I think I definitely think we sort of dodged a couple of bullets there.
yeah. Are there any like inspiring stories or actions you've seen since the pandemic started?
For me, I think the best thing to have come out of all this is I had no idea really how much of a community there was out there, just amongst people we already knew, but also all our neighbours.
Mm.
Um, I didn't really think about how much I was sort of taking for granted all the people we live in close proximity to, but we've got to know our neighbours, like our immediate neighbours, really well. Within a couple of days of this sort of lockdown stuff happening, we had a note through the door from someone on our street saying that if anyone's up for joining a WhatsApp group, we can do that so that we can, if someone is in need of supplies and can't go out, or if they're fully self-isolated and need someone to go to the shops or pick up medication, then let us know. And the whole street's in it now. In fact,
That's great.
the street next to us is in it, and there's some really good conversations, both just purely social,
Yeah.
and the sort of functional, in terms of this person needs a prescription picking up, who can do it. And it's lovely, and there's even sort of discussion of, once all this is over, let's have a street party and actually get to know our immediate community, that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and these various groups that I'm sure have popped up in every single neighborhood in the country, but probably in the world, of everyone looking out for the vulnerable in our communities. And there's no other way I think that could have come about, and I really hope that continues beyond this, because I think people are seeing the importance of actually having people around them. That for me is the most silver of all the linings.
Any other ways you wish it or hope it will help shape the future? I
would like to think in future it means we'll be better planned for this. I think that has been a bit of a surprise. So my sister works, my sister and her husband, they both work for the NHS. They both work, they're both consultants in their relative fields. And I think they have both been frustrated, and also with a sort of sense of told you so, that the NHS was underfunded and was not prepared for this, and that actually the sort of governments and civil servants need to actually have in place some plans. I'm sure they had some plans, but I feel like the sort of, we're only really seeing, because of this actually happening, how wide-ranging the impacts are. It's not just an impact on the health service. It's not just an impact. I mean, who knew that the biggest immediate impact was going to be on toilet roll supplies? Yeah. And that's, I think we can actually now get hold of loo roll again. But it's who knew that for a month it was going to be everyone's biggest concern.
Yeah.
And so I think, hopefully more things are in place. I do get quite passionately defensive over the NHS, and I do, because it's an incredible thing. We take it completely for granted that we can just walk in and get patched up for whatever stupid thing we've managed to do to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I do hope that from this, from this incredibly dramatic event, that continues to be put as more of a priority.
Hopefully everybody's realised that it's the most essential thing that we have.
I think that's it. I think I think it is the most essential thing, and I think people are realising that it is the most essential thing, and also how incredible it is that we have this. That it's free at point of service. There's really not many places in the world where we can do this, and we do need to treasure it, I think. And I mean, personally as well, I found doing woodwork and things, I'm wearing more kind of PPE in terms of, and I'm being more careful in with everything I'm doing. I'm wearing steel toe cap boots and goggles and all sorts of stuff that I've usually just been like, it's fine, but I'm very aware of not putting any extra pressure just from filling my time, during these times. And I think hopefully people sort of taking responsibility for looking after themselves and not over pressuring a stretched service. But I'm hoping that will that sort of prioritizing health services and community support will go on beyond this.
Thank you very much for coming on.
No worries. No, thank you very much for asking me. I think it's really good that you're doing this. So
I look forward to coming round and using your hot tub once it's done. And once
definitely. Well, I'll send you pictures of the finished thing, and don't worry. As soon as we have the ribbon cutting ceremony, I'll get your invite in the post. So.
Amazing. Just actually before we do go, how would people get in touch with you or be able to see your work?
So for my wildlife work, so my main way, or my main social media is Instagram, and for my wildlife work and conservation work, if you want to see lots of orangutans and particularly things living in forests, is at WalmsWild, at WALMSWILD, and for my studio kind of dance and circus and performance work, if you look for Ginger Snaps Media on Instagram, then that's the best place to find that.
Brilliant. We'll put those links in the show notes as well. So
that's great. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks for coming.
Nice one. No, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Positive Negative.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter at
@posnegative or find us on Facebook.
And join in the conversation using the hashtag posnegative.
You can help us to grow by leaving us a review and sharing this episode with your friends and followers.
You'll also find links to what we've talked about in the show notes, or by visiting positivenegativepodcast.com.